Hi, this is Will Fontenot with Fontenot Spevak, and today we're going to talk about the concept of dissipation of marital estate. And a great case to talk about this on is Wadsworth V. Wadsworth, 2022 Utah App 28. This is a Utah Court of Appeals case from the 3rd District Court. Sue Chan was the judge here. Let's get into this. So the husband's name was Guy, the wife's name was Candy, and I think there were actually two different divorce filings in this case, and Guy made some purchases in between that. He purchased 2 restaurants, a plane, a cabin, and a yacht, and he did not discuss any of these purchases with Candy, and she learned about them from other people. The yacht cost $2.5 million, but by the time of trial, the yacht was underwater. Gary still owed $1.175 million, but the yacht was worth only $790,000, so clearly that was not the best financial decision and clearly caused the marital estate to lose money, hence the reason why Candy was trying to argue that this was dissipation of the marital estate, that Guy made decisions that caused the marital estate to go down. There was also an irrevocable trust that Guy had created and put about $4 million into, which was mainly for the purposes of helping out his children, but we'll talk about that in a second. So she was arguing that that was dissipation. And then Guy also made investments into an oil company investment in North Dakota, which also lost money. So we'll talk about that in just a second. The parties spent more than 6 years conducting discovery and other pretrial litigation before the matter finally came before the district court for an 8-day bench trial in February of 2017. There was another 4-day trial about revocation of the trust, and then there were a bunch of post-trial motions and hearings after that as well. But we're not going to get into that. We're just going to talk about the dissipation issue that Candy made on appeal here. So Candy argued to the district court that Guy had dissipated marital assets in anticipation of divorce, including spending money on his girlfriend, purchasing the yacht, a jet, and a wine collection, paying attorney fees for the trust, and transferring money out of the estate into the trust. So except as to the $814,000 that Guy spent on his girlfriend, for which it compensated Candy out of the marital estate, the court found that Guy did not dissipate marital assets. Although the court found that the legal fees spent on the trust were not dissipation, it nevertheless allocated half of that value to Candy as part of the marital estate. As to the purchase of the yacht, jet, and wine, the court reasoned that Guy did not dissipate assets by purchasing these items because the items were still in the marital estate and Candy was awarded half of their value. The court also found that it was Guy's historical practice to buy planes and boats, and that some depreciation of such assets is to be expected. The court rejected Candy's argument that purchasing a depreciating asset should, as a rule, be considered dissipation. However, the court assigned the negative value on the yacht entirely to Guy, reasoning that he unilaterally purchased this boat and limited Candy's access. That sort of is a finding of dissipation there, that if the court did that. But at the same time, the court didn't require Gary to reimburse the marital estate for the amount that he lost on the boat. Here's where we talk about the investment in FDFM, which is an entity created to develop land in North Dakota where the oil rush was booming. So Guy, the value of this interest at the time of trial was only $734,000, but he had originally put in about $1.29 million into it. Candy asserted that the higher value should be used because Guy did not disclose the investment to her. The district court rejected this argument, explaining that Guy never consulted with Candy on any business decisions that he made throughout the marriage, so making business decisions without disclosing them to her was well within the scope of his historical practices. That's going to be a key factor in any dissipation claim, is what were the historical practices with regard to making purchases and making investments. So, if this is something that you're going to have a problem with in the marriage, you can't be okay with it for 20 years and then suddenly have an issue about these practices when it comes to trial. you can see how that would sort of be disingenuous on the part of a party to claim that they didn't have a problem with it until they found out that the purchase or the investment had actually lost value. That came up in a case that we were going to take to trial not too long ago, where our client had made some investments that lost money, and then the wife wanted all that money back. She wasn't going to get it, because the truth is that if your spouse makes investments during the marriage and you trust them to do that, and that investment ends up being unprofitable, then that's just considered something that the marriage did. That was an investment that the marriage made that just was an unsuccessful investment. All right, let's scroll down to the dissipation analysis part of this opinion. This was a very long opinion. There were a lot of issues. So this was a complicated case, and the court did spend a lot of time trying to sort out the issues that the wife brought on appeal, which, by the way, she lost, I think, on every one. So, all right, dissipation. Dissipation occurs when an asset has been dissipated, a party has hidden its value, or otherwise acted obstructively. When a court finds that a spouse has dissipated marital assets, the court should calculate the value of the marital property as though the assets remained and give the other spouse a credit for his or her share of the assets that were dissipated. So basically you would say, like Candy was trying to say here, that the amount that was lost, that he should have to pay for half of that, or that should be, refunded to the marital estate. At least half of it should be. Here are the factors that a court is going to consider in determining whether there has been dissipation of a marital asset. 1, how the money was spent, including whether funds were used to pay legitimate marital expenses or individual expenses. 2, the party's historical practices. 3, the magnitude of any depletion. 4, the timing of the challenged actions in relation to the separation and divorce. And 5, any obstructive efforts that hinder the valuation of these assets. So those are the 4 factors that a court is going to apply to determine if a spouse has dissipated assets. So clearly, spending money on a girlfriend when that wasn't consented to by the other spouse, that's going to be considered dissipation. Some people might argue that gambling, when gambling wasn't a part of the marriage, that could constitute dissipation. Spending money in strip clubs, spending money on prostitutes, those kinds of things definitely are something that you would want to look into to determine if you have a dissipation claim. But honestly, when it comes to just regular purchases, or when it comes to investments that just didn't pan out, it's going to be pretty hard to make a dissipation claim unless you can really show that the person who made those investments or made those purchases did it in secret and did it really with the intent to benefit from the purchase or the investment, and to keep the other party from being able to benefit from that. So in this case, the court found that the yacht was not dissipation. Its rapid depreciation meant that it was cash going out the door for no benefit. That's what Candy said, that, this yacht, this was a stupid purchase and we were just losing money because there was no benefit. However, Candy acknowledges that Utah law has not held that the purchase of a depreciating asset constitutes dissipation, but she nevertheless urges us to adopt such a rule, relying on case law from Illinois, and that was not successful. The court was not willing to do that, not in this case at least. Maybe in the future that might happen, but it's not looking good for this type of a theory. Here, the court found that the purchase of the yacht was consistent with Guy's historical practice of buying planes and boats, and that there was no evidence that Guy caused excessive diminution in value. Additionally, the court assigned to Guy all responsibility for the outstanding debt on the yacht, so any debt in dissipation caused by the yacht's purchase was resolved. Okay, and that was upheld. Probably the more interesting issue here is this North Dakota investment. Candy next claims that the district court should have valued FDFM based on the $1.129 million Guy invested in it, rather than the $734,000 value at the time of trial. She asserts that had Guy not unilaterally made that poor investment, more money would have remained in the marital estate. According to Candy, because Guy did not consult her regarding the investment, he acted obstructively and should therefore be held accountable for the diminished value of the asset. However, the mere failure to disclose the investment did not mandate a finding that Guy acted obstructively. In fact, the evidence here supported the court's finding that Guy never consulted with Candy on any business decisions that he made throughout the marriage, and that making business decisions without disclosing them to her was well within the scope of his historical practices. So what this means is that a party doesn't have to disclose investments that the party is making to the other spouse if that's historically the way they did it, and Candy didn't have a problem with it all the way up until she had an opportunity to benefit from it. Also, what would have happened had that had that 1.129 million investment gone up to 3 million? She clearly would have wanted part of that. So she can't try to argue that she should have all of the gain, but none of the loss. All investments come with risk. It's unfortunate that an investment lost money, but that's very common in marriages, that you have investments that lose money. That's not going to be a good dissipation claim. The diminution of FDFM's value resulted from changes in the market, and there is nothing to indicate that the loss of value resulted from any deceptive or obstructive actions by Guy. They also went into these asset transfers to the trust. Transferring assets to their children was consistent with the parties' practices during the marriage, beginning as early as 1993. And Candy had deferred to Guy to run the parties' finances and estate throughout the marriage. The court found no evidence that Guy attempted to withhold information or cut Candy out from the estate planning process. So if you've got a dissipation issue in your case and you'd like to talk to an attorney about that, or any other property issues that you may have in your divorce case, you can give us a call. 801-312-9330, 801-312-9330, Fontenot, Spevak, Salt Lake County, Davis County, Weber County.